Hey friends, it's Joel Richardson, and this is The Underground. Welcome to this episode of The Underground, a program that explores the testimony of the biblical prophets, the gospel of Jesus Christ, current events, and how all of these things relate to you and me. Now, as most of you know, if you saw the last episode, I've just returned from Saudi Arabia for a trip to what many people, including myself, believe is the real Mount Sinai. And not just the real Mount Sinai, but really many of the sites, this sort of whole region that are filled with sites that make up the locations of the true biblical Exodus. Now, let me just say before I sort of jump in, this is an issue surrounded by tremendous controversy, not only on the scholarly level in the academy, in the academic world, but also on a popular level. There is tremendous controversy and opinion over the Exodus. Within the field of Exodus studies, scholars are incredibly divided. Very few people today still affirm that the location of Mount Sinai is actually in Sinai, at the place that most people call the Mountain of Moses, Mount Sinai, St. Catherine's, St. Katrina, and this sort of thing down in the Sinai. And there are a handful of other mountains that have been suggested and are being looked at even presently as possible locations for the real Mount Sinai. But one of them is this mountain called Jabal al-Lawz or Jabal al-Luz or Jabal al-Makla, which means the quarry, in Saudi Arabia, so in northwest Saudi Arabia. Now, let me just say this. I've been reading numerous articles, not only scholarly papers, but also popular online articles, and many of the people who have an opinion on the subject don't display a tremendous amount of charity, or, there can be a lot of condescension and sort of just a derogatory attitude toward people who have differing opinions. And there are even, not surprisingly, atheists that have written extensive articles online arguing against Jabal al-Lawz in Saudi Arabia as the real Mount Sinai. And there are also very strongly worded scholarly articles sort of condescendingly looking down on this possibility. Now, part of the reason for that is because of the particular voices that have been really shouting from the rooftop saying, this is the real Mount Sinai. So back in the 80s, you had Ron Wyatt, and then he was followed by Bob Cornuke. Bob has written extensively on the location of the temple, where he believes the temple was in the city of David, as opposed to up on Mount Moriah. And then, really, in terms of the primary voices out there, this was followed, after Bob Cornuke, is a couple that I mentioned last week, Jim and Penny Caldwell. And they went there 14 times throughout the 1990s. They were living and working in Saudi Arabia. And so none of these individuals are genuine biblical scholars. So on one hand, there's a tremendous amount of, again, derogatory references and condescension because these individuals are not archaeologists or, PhDs and this sort of thing. And so, in my opinion, and I'll be real honest, there's a lot of just jealousy in the scholarly community. How could it be that just sort of some biblical adventurers were able to find this location to sort of ferret out a lot of the historical references, because there's a tremendous amount of historical support from Josephus to Ptolemy to the Septuagint to Origen, Eusebius, Jerome. I mean, all of them have significant references to the fact that the real Mount Sinai is in Saudi Arabia. So in any case, if you do go online and you start sort of studying this out, on the surface you go, wait, there's a lot to dismiss this. But I want to say, I worked through a lot of the popular articles as well as quite a few scholarly papers before I left. And I was just working through all kinds of things. And again, there's just such a broad range of opinions out there. But I have yet to see a solid argument against this location in Mount Sinai. In fact, I believe that the historical and the biblical testimony is fairly overwhelming and consistent that this is the location, but having gone there, now having seen it with my own eyes, having seen sort of the layout of all of the locations, the itinerary and so forth, I am absolutely convinced that this is the real Mount Sinai. I can't tell you guys how absolutely, completely in awe I was the whole time I was there. So we spent about 4 days, 3.5 days, visiting several different sites, several different locations. This was mind-boggling. This was absolutely, hands down, one of the most life-changing, life-impacting, faith-building events in my whole life. I mean, I'm still sort of trembling in holy awe with regard to the things that I saw and experienced and had the opportunity to see. Now, okay, everyone is saying, but Joel, wasn't that awfully dangerous? How do you sneak into Saudi Arabia? For the most part, I'll just say that it's one of these situations where, and I can't give you all the details in terms of how I got there, but it was one of these situations where everyone that you talk to say, on one day, it could be just fine. On another day, there could be a lot of trouble. So yes, there's some danger, relatively speaking. For the most part, everybody that we met was incredibly friendly. All of the locals were really warm. I mean, they were inviting us to their homes to come have dinner and this sort of thing. So we were blessed. So I just want to begin by thanking everyone, because I've been drawing this thing out, not because I've meant to, but simply because it's taken so long. And I know many of you have been in anticipation saying, Joel, what are you about to do? What are you talking about? What are you so excited about? And I've been asking for your prayers, and many of you donated as well to make the trip happen. And by the way, it ended up being a lot more expensive than I thought. We had to rent a few four-wheel vehicles, and because of some of the places that we went, we actually kind of beat up a couple of them, sort of the side runners, and there's always more expenses involved. So thank God and thank you all that many of you did donate. But especially, and again, I want to be, from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you for your prayers. I've mentioned this in a few of the other programs. The warfare over this thing was tremendous and palpable. I can tend to be a fairly insensitive guy when it comes to spiritual warfare. I just sort of bulldog my way through it. But just the past few months, the warfare has been palpable. And even when I was there, I had I don't know how else to say it other than a tragedy in my own family, not my immediate family, but sort of it's impacting my immediate family, but my extended family, my close family. There was just stuff that was going on, warfare that, I was in the airport on the phone, just sort of having a borderline nervous breakdown in terms of just the stuff that was going on at home. And so I knew that this was coming. Again, it was just the warfare was tremendous. But I want to say thank you to everyone who prayed, who genuinely prayed, and thank you to everyone who gave. Okay, so as I said, we were able to spend 3.5, 4 days at multiple sites. And here's the thing, here's the neat thing. Before I went, I said there is a new discovery and something that I can't wait to share with you all. Now, let me just say this. We have pictures of this new discovery. However, we were not able to get to it again. So there is another trip. I'm not going, but there is another trip very soon planned to go and get some better images of this other find. I can't give you all the details just yet. However, while there, we did find another new find of some cave paintings, which I think greatly testify concerning the reality of this place as the real Mount Sinai. And I'm going to share that new discovery with you all sometime here soon. I'm excited. I mean, it's hard to describe, first of all, how massive this area is. I mean, it's not just like a little mountain. It's not like you drive out in the desert and there's a mountain, a hill you climb. I mean, it's like a massive, massive mountain range. And just sort of working your way up just to the foot of the mountain takes hours. So the first day, and I'll tell you why we didn't actually get to the location that we were trying to get to. So in the front of the mountain is a cave, which most people believe is the cave of Elijah. That's where I actually recorded the program last week. And because, Elijah went to Mount Sinai, and there was a cave that he went to, and there's only one prominent cave right on the face of this mountain that we believe is Mount Sinai. And so we left bright and early in the morning, 6 a.m. We started hiking, and the plan was to go to the cave of Elijah and then to crest the top of Mount Sinai. The problem is, as we were coming into the location, again, there's no Wi-Fi, there's no GPS. It's really tricky in that regard. We came in the middle of the night because, again, people are often harassed and, they get arrested as they're going there. So we tried to drive in the middle of the night while the local Bedouins are sleeping, and we're crossing and going, driving past all sorts of little Bedouin houses, sort of little shacks, if you will, little Bedouin houses out in the middle. And again, this is way out in the middle of nowhere. And trying not to disturb anybody. But in that, we found a parking spot that we were going to just sort of sleep for an hour or two and then get up and hike. The problem is we sort of went one mountain too far. So we got up in the morning and hiked for a bit, crested this mountain, and then realized, we have to go back down the mountain and then up again. So, 50-pound backpack, and we all had about a gallon of water. So and again, it's 100 degrees. So once the full sun came out at the peak of the day, it was about 100 degrees with a breeze, but it was hot. So the plan was to go to the cave of Elijah and then go to the top of Sinai. By the time that we got to the cave of Elijah, we had been hiking 6 hours. And a lot of our water was already pretty well depleted, and we were tired. Again, a 50-pound backpack on rugged, heavy-duty mountains, no trail. It was a lot of work. I mean, this was a big part of just planning for this, was trying to get physically in shape and so forth. So we just said, there's no way we're going to make it up to the top of Sinai today. We're going to run out of water. And this sort of thing. So we had to sort of adjust, and this is just the nature of these type of trips. You have to just sort of adjust on the fly. So we were not able to get up there. However, as I said, we were so blessed. Every other place that we went, we had free access, free reign. No one was harassing us, no difficulties. It was absolutely blessed. Now, I would say of all the places that we went to, there's actually a few incredible highlights. Every place that we went was amazing. We did, have free access to the golden calf altar. That's this massive altar at the base of the mountain where it's believed that the golden calf was built and then, of course, later melted down. But here you have this massive pile of rocks with calves and bulls carved into it, into the rock, all over it, exactly as you would expect to find if this was the real Mount Sinai at the base of the mountain. There's also another massive altar that is believed to be the altar made of uncut stones that God commanded Moses to make. That's right at the base of the mountain, again, right there as you would expect to find. There's also a whole bunch of the remnants of a bunch of fairly crudely cut columns, and they're sort of scattered all about right there at the base of the mountain, right in front of the altar of Moses. And it's really unfortunate, by the way, because many of them, it looks like people have been just chipping away at them, and there's little pieces and chips everywhere. And then, so this was all very fascinating. Again, a lot of other carvings in the rocks, and this is where we found something that I'll share later that was incredibly, again, ties into the story according to the scriptures. I'm not going to get into the details now, but then we went to the Split Rock. We went to the Split Rock, and there's no question that this was one of the highlights of the trip. Now, for anyone who has not seen pictures of this, I'm going to put some pictures up real briefly. I just want you to get a feel for this. Now, if you have seen pictures, I can tell you this. It is way bigger than it looks. The hill that it is on, when I looked at it, I thought, that's just a little hill. You can run up it in about 15 seconds. No, it's like you have to climb this sort of small hill. It takes you probably about 10, 15 minutes just to get up the hill, just to get to the base of the rock. The rock itself is probably, I'm going to guess, 40 to 50 feet tall. It's a big, big rock. And, again, I've been to Israel several times. I've been to all of the, the tour spots, the historical locations, the archaeological sites, and I can tell you that this was one of the most awe-inspiring of any site that I've been to. Part of it is because of the pristine nature of this entire location. I mean, the thing about all of this is it's like you're there, and it's like no one has been there in thousands of years. And there have been people that are there. There's Bedouins that live in the area, but for the most part, the place is just, it's untouched. And it's that's what's so incredible about it, is you feel like you can look and see it exactly as it was thousands of years ago. Now, there is a lot of Bedouin, there's some farms and roads, and there's even a gas station. There's a lot of things that are being built right now. And the city of Neom is coming. And so this is a big part of this whole project, and this is part of my plan and my goal in all of this. And we're going to talk some more about this. But ultimately is to cry out to the Saudi Arabian government that this whole area would be protected and preserved for tourists, that it wouldn't just become this big sort of built-up area that, the city would be built around it, that it would be preserved. Because I can tell you, if Saudi Arabia opens this up to tourism, and I believe they will in the next few years, I genuinely believe they are building up to that. Everywhere we went, there were locations that were fenced off with the sign that says the Saudi Office of Antiquities and so forth. They are preparing. It's very clear to me that they are preparing for tourists to come. If this thing gets opened up, this will become, in the years ahead, one of the most magnificent, one of the most visited, one of the most, again, awe-inspiring locations for Christian and Jewish tourists and pilgrims, other than Jerusalem itself. In fact, this was as awe-inspiring to me as Jerusalem itself. It was just absolutely stunning. Again, I can't underscore that enough. So this is the cry, is that the emerging, the government that's rising right now, again, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman will protect and preserve this as he opens it up to tourists, and that generations in the future will have the opportunity to see this. I believe this is coming. Again, because he's trying to moderate the country, present a progressive face, and a big part of that is opening up this whole region to foreign visitors and tourists and so forth. So there's something that God is doing here that's huge. I'm going to talk about that some more, and I believe that we can all be a part of that. So as I said, in terms of that other find, I'll just say this, my friend and my host found this big find. When this thing is released, this could be one of the biggest archaeological finds in recent years. In my opinion, it validates this as the mountain, and it could be one of the most profound carvings discovered of all of the carvings around this mountain. I'll just say it. I believe that it's a carving of Moses himself parting the sea. And I've seen pictures of it. I believe that's what it's portraying. The location of it, everything about it is stunning. And again, my friend who I was with was the one who originally found this several years ago. And very soon we're going to try to get some better photographs of it and, again, just make this public. The desire is to share it with the world. There's no possessiveness here. We're not territorial. We want the world to see this. And again, I'm going to talk some more about that. But again, the split rock, what's so amazing about it, and I'll just say this real briefly, is that when you're there, it's very clear. You're like, the Lord has preserved this location. Here's this 40-foot rock split right down the middle. Now, when the Lord commanded Moses, he goes, go up and strike the rock of Horeb. So first of all, you have to understand, Horeb was sort of the whole mountain range. Sinai was the particular peak. But when he says the rock of Horeb, so he's talking about this prominent rock within this Horeb range, and it was a landmark. He goes, go strike the rock of Horeb. Well, you go, there's a lot of rocks out here, God. What do you mean the rock? This had to have been a prominent, distinct rock. And this rock that we went and visited, the split rock, is absolutely, it meets that criteria. It is distinct. It stands out. It's just, you've got this big hill, and then you have just this huge rock just sticking up. But I want to read this verse. And there's a few passages like this in the Psalms, but in Isaiah 48, verse 21, it really lays it out because it tells us something very distinct. It says, talking about the Israelites, they did not thirst when he led them through the deserts. So not just one desert, multiple deserts. They did not thirst. Well, deserts don't have water. Why? He made the water flow out of the rock for them. He split the rock. He clave the rock, and the water gushed forth. So the Lord tells us, not only is this a prominent rock which then gushed forth water, but the Lord split it. It's a very specific word. The Lord split the rock. So here you have, very close to Mount Sinai, the mountain that we believe is Mount Sinai. this rock split down the middle. And on top of that, it has the clear signs as you stand there on the hill and when you're there, and I've seen videos and I go, does it portray it, does it not? You can see the clear evidence of where the water has flown down from this rock. And I tell you, in years to come, if we can get a seismic in there to test it, I guarantee you they'll show that there's some sort of straw coming up under this hill and that at one time this thing gushed forth water. The evidence to the human eye when you're there is clear. Even if you didn't know anything about this as the possible location, you would say, man, it looks like water flows down off of this hill, and the rock itself shows signs of erosion. Is it possible, and let me just say this, is it possible that you have this mountain which matches the historical descriptions? You have references like Josephus saying that Mount Sinai is the tallest mountain in the range in Saudi Arabia, or Josephus doesn't say Saudi Arabia, but in the land of Midian, down there in Arabia, by Midian, which is the city today of Al-Bad or Al-Bid. Is it possible that you have a mountain which is believed by many historical the testimony of various historical figures to be the mountain? Is it possible that that mountain has an altar at the base with carvings of cows and calves? Is it possible that it has an altar at the base made with rocks not cut by human hands, just sort of a natural altar? Is it possible that this mountain also has the columns exactly like we would expect to find, because the Lord said, Moses, build 12 altars after the 12 tribes of Israel? Is it possible that all the carvings line up with the biblical account? Is it possible that there's this massive split rock which has all of the telltale signs of the split rock in the book of Exodus? Is it possible that that's all a coincidence? Is it possible that as you trace the only possible route that the Israelites could have taken from the Red Sea to get to Mount Sinai, that there just happens to be right in the middle of that an oasis exactly like that described in Exodus called Elim, where there are 70 palm trees and 12 wells. I mean, there's actually now much more than 70 palm trees, but literally 12 wells, exactly as you would expect to find, just sort of coming out of the desert, out of nowhere. Boom, there it is. Is it possible that all of these things line up and it's all just coincidence? Yeah, it's possible. Coincidences are possible. But personally, there's a certain point where if you're such a skeptic, if you're such a critic that you're willing to believe that the odds are, that all of these things are just coincidence, there's a point where it becomes foolish. And I'm just telling you that everything, when you get there, when you understand the layout of it all, it is absolutely stunning. And I'm personally convinced, absolutely convinced, that this is the real Mount Sinai. So, what is the plan? Again, the plan is to have another trip as soon as possible to get the pictures of the Moses stone, we're calling it. The Moses stone, the stone with the carving of Moses on it. Again, I can't wait to share that with everyone and to prove that this was carved by the Israelites, by the Hebrews. There's evidence for that. Because when you look at these carvings, they look primitive. What are these, like cavemen? But again, they're drawing by chiseling pictures off of rocks. So yeah, it's a bit primitive. But there's evidence, very clear evidence, undeniable evidence, in my opinion, that this was all made by the Hebrews. So the plan is, first of all, to get that. Second of all, the plan is to make a film about our trip and the discoveries and to lay out the case for why this is the real Mount Sinai, and to make a film about it. Now, let me just say this. The time is ripe. The city of Neom is being built. Again, this city-state that is going to surround this whole area. While we were there, we stayed at a little hotel one night, and the hotel was a conference for Neom. We ran into multiple contractors and engineers that are there. The city of Neom is already being built. They're laying the infrastructure, the power lines and different things. It's being built. The time is ripe. The Lord is going to draw attention back to this mountain in the next few years. This is going to be a big issue in biblical archaeology, etc., etc. Now, my goal in making the film is not to simply do another film arguing that this is Mount Sinai. That's not the primary purpose, although I will do that. There are other films that will be coming out very soon, that will be released very soon. In fact, there's another brother who has been there a few times just in the past several months, and it's a name that many of you may recognize, many of you know, and he's working on a film. Now, my heart in this, and I think you all know that my heart in these things is I don't want to just do my thing. I've always believed that what we need to do as believers is we look and see what God is doing, and then we partner with it. So my heart in this is to partner with some of these other projects, and by partner, I mean to support them and to help them and to get the word out, because I believe there will be a synergistic catalytic effect. I believe that the more the merrier, if you will, that some of these different projects, they're all going to come at things from a different angle, different emphasis. I want the world to become aware of this site. Again, I want the Saudi government, the Saudi Arabian government, to protect the site. And I want people to see what I've seen. I want people to see the site. I want people to stand in awe. I want God to be glorified. I want the testimony concerning the great things that He has done in the past to be shouted from the rooftops once again. I want to talk about that some more. So in any case, I'm going to be making a film. However, as you all know, archaeology and all of this stuff, this is not my primary thing. My primary thing, I've got a lot of things, but one of my main messages is the return of Jesus. And so I'm going to make the film, and then I want to just give it away for free. I want to just put it out there. I just want to put it on YouTube. And then I want to write a book that goes with this. Now, not just a book about the real Mount Sinai, but, and here's sort of the next book that I'm working on, and I've got some other projects that will come out before this, but I want to write a book showing how the biblical Exodus is one of the clearest, most striking patterns in all of Scripture for the return of Jesus. And I'm just going to leave that there as sort of a teaser, but I'm telling you, the pattern of the Exodus, the itinerary of the Exodus, it is mirrored throughout the prophets, it is mirrored throughout the Psalms, and it is one of the most glorious, specific patterns and shadows and types that helps us to understand with clarity many passages throughout the prophets that describe the return of Jesus. I mean this when I say I think this is going to be my most exciting, groundbreaking book that I've ever written. I am electrified to write this. So that's the long-term plan. Now, to make the film, I don't want to just sort of throw out a bunch of footage and just sort of put it on YouTube. I want to do it well. So in order to do that, I do need to raise funds. And so, as you all know, I hate appealing. I hate, just appealing for funds. But in order to do this, in order to make a film, it's always fairly costly. There's a lot involved in the way of editing and all of the 3D graphics and all the different things that go into it. It's a tremendous amount of work. So I just want to put this out there. If you would like to partner with me to make this happen, this is probably going to be a project that will be unfolding for most of this year. And then when we are able to get better pictures of this Moses stone, that will sort of be the deadline, if you will. We want to get that information into it. I may release the film in sort of section, in portions, and then ultimately put it all together. But again, I just want to put it out there for free, and then I'll probably just do a whole bunch of teaching that will follow, that will mirror what I'm going to write about in the book, that explains and goes through and works through all of this information concerning the return of Jesus. Again, I'm so excited. So if you'd like to partner with me, what I'll do is I'll just put up the link on the screen for Joel's Trumpet and partner. And again, there are various ways to give. You can give an instant donation through PayPal. That is not tax deductible. Okay, if you give that, I can write you a receipt, but I can't do that for everyone. It's the right way to do it is to click on I Squared Ministries, which is the ministry, the umbrella ministry that I'm under, and you give that way. Then at the end of the year, you'll automatically get your tax deductible receipt. If you live in another country, you can just do it through PayPal. And there's also a physical address, a P.O. box. If you want to just send a check, you can do that. Now listen, not only am I trying to raise funds to make this film and make it nice, to make it professional and presentable, I want to help some of these other guys. I want to help some of these other projects. I want to partner with them. And my hope and my heart in this is that, again, I can be a blessing to some of these other projects. I want the world to be aware of, I want to trumpet the reality of this. And let me just end it with this. We live in an age when unbelief is exploding. Unbelief, atheism is exploding. Even in the church, belief in the inerrancy of Scripture is falling. People are increasingly embracing gay marriage, just like you name it. the things that once defined conservative evangelicals are waning. Many people, even in the church, believe there are many ways to God, this sort of thing. Unbelief is exploding. Within the scholarly world, again, in the field of Exodus studies, unbelief prevails. It's amazing how many scholars don't believe that the Exodus ever even happened. And so, as I said, we're at this ripe moment. We're at this ripe moment where the city is about to be built. Things are changing in Saudi Arabia like you can't imagine. And I believe, I'm firmly convinced that in this hour, the Lord is going to highlight this location once again. He's going to call the attention of the church and the world back to this awe-inspiring location. Why? Because this is the place when he did things they're different than what he did throughout much of the rest of the scriptures. Again, most often when God works, even you could have followed Jesus around and seen him heal the sick, seen him do miracles, and still walked away and gone, I think he was just doing parlor tricks, or maybe that guy was in on it, and have unbelief and have doubt. It's amazing. You look at the end of Matthew 28, and it says the disciples went up to Galilee, to the mountain that Jesus told them to go. So now Jesus is in his glorified, resurrected body. He has come back from the dead, and he meets them up there, and it says, but some of them doubted. You go, wait a minute, what? Here's Jesus in his glorified, resurrected body. He rose from the dead, and there were some who still doubted, even at that point. So the point is this, is the Lord always requires a faith response, a trust response, a heart response, even when he's doing miracles. It's not just like it's so clear that you go, that was a miracle. God opens up the curtains and says, I'm here, but there's always room for doubt. But that is not the case with the events that surround Mount Sinai and the Exodus. With those events, the glory of God came down in manifest presence, the manifest presence, visible from heaven, and he spoke, and it was like thunder, and the earth shook, and they begged, and they said, tell him not to speak anymore. And he went before them as a pillar of fire and cloud, and it was just, the sea was open. These were the events that he kicked the whole process of redemption off with, so to speak. And he bore witness concerning who he is, his mighty power, and he left no room for unbelief. Men were without excuse. Men are without excuse anyway, but it's in these events that men are without excuse. And I believe that in this age of unbelief, the Lord, as we approach the last days, the Lord is going to highlight this location once again as he bears witness to the world concerning the day of the Lord and the day of judgment that's coming. And as we approach the day of the Lord, he is going to increasingly manifest his presence and testify and bear witness concerning himself and his mighty deeds in the days of old, because he is preparing the world for the day of judgment. And so my spirit is burning with this. I'm blessed to be able to be part of this, whole process of trumpeting it and shouting it to the world. And I'm inviting you all to partner with me as well as I do my part, as we do our part, to, again, call attention to this. I believe it's going to be a testimony to the unbelieving world. I believe it's going to be a testimony to the church that is increasingly giving itself over to unbelief. I believe it's going to be a testimony to the scholarly world that mocks the very notion that the Exodus is even real. I believe it's going to be a powerful testimony to the Arab world, to the Islamic world, as they see right there in Saudi Arabia, right there in the land of Midian, that the mountain of God, the mountain of fire, the Mount of Sinai, the mountain of Moses is right there, and it's been preserved, it's been protected for all these years. So this is sort of the project. This is there's a few other projects. Again, I have a book that will be coming out here real soon. We've co-authored it with a good friend, a missionary friend, and we're looking forward to sharing that with you all. I've got another fictional book that I'm working on, again with a friend. We have a lot of projects coming forward, but as soon as we get some of these other things out of the way, this is the thing that I'm going to be hitting hard. So again, if you wanted to join and partner with me in this project, please continue to pray, because again, the warfare doesn't stop when we get back. I'm sure there's going to be tremendous warfare down the road. But again, you can go to Joel's Trumpet and partner with us in this. So thank you so much. So, okay, friends, that is the update. I finally can get that off my chest. It's a blessing to be able to share that with you all. There's going to be so much more forthcoming. Again, little by little, I'll share more pictures, more stories, and different things. But we did it. We did it together. And so we're on our way. So that's it for this week. As always, thank you so much for being with us. Look forward to seeing you next time. Until then, I'm Joel Richardson, and this is The Underground.